So, what does Krakoa look like in the midst of the time stream entanglement? Is Magneto in charge of everything? And just who gave Magneto the ability to communicate across planes of existence? Let's talk about it. My name is the Riddler, wrong universe, I know, and this is Marvel Rivals Season 1 character profile for the Master of Magnetism, Magneto. So let's start with a good point made by a commenter. In my last video about Psylocke, I go on like a 2-minute rant about who possibly could have reached out to her in the far reaches of space, and I talk about Jean Grey and Professor X and a bunch of theories and things that I mention. A very helpful commenter, who I pinned in that video, was just like, I mean, did you read Magneto's story? And I can't lie to y'all, I was like, oh yeah, right. That it does say that. So long story short, Magneto is the one to reach out to Psylocke. Very good catch. I encourage y'all to do that, by the way. If I say something wrong or pose a question like that that has a very clear answer that I've forgotten about, feel free to answer or correct me. I have read everything that is in the game, but there's a lot of things to read in the game. So things that are not immediately memorable to me tend to end up slid to the wayside. And I can forget about things. It happens. Thank you. But all of that brings me to today's video. Magneto, as I'm sure you all are aware, considering he's one of the more popular members slash enemies of the X-Men, is not a telekinetic. So how exactly does he reach out to Psylocke way in the middle of nowhere? Well, not nowhere specifically, because nowhere is a place, but the far reaches of space, wherever she is after helping out the space whale. In order to answer that, we actually have to turn the clock back ever so slightly. In Magic's story, she's approached by both Wolverine and Scarlet Witch to save a young mutant girl who got trapped in limbo when things went screwy with the time stream entanglement, much like Illyana did herself when she was a child. After they find that girl, Logan does what mutants always have since its founding and takes her to Krakoa, where Magneto is musing to Storm about the predicament Krakoa has found itself in. See, while Krakoa is currently in 2099, and this is the same Wolverine that we have seen in the stories before, working with Cap, working with Widow, etc., Krakoa, both the land and its denizens, are from 2024. They are from the timeline with the 2024 Doom. However, the time stream entanglement threw them essentially into the future. It flung them all the way to 2099. And the time string entanglement also seems to flow in some ways like a river or an act of nature, and Storm was able to handle it, so they landed safely. Now, that is a massive understatement of the weight of what Storm does to save Krakoa, but we are going to go more in depth on that in the next video. Obviously, as a safe haven for mutants of all ages, there are a lot of disheveled children that Storm and Magnus are both trying to help out. That is when the trio of Magic, Wolverine, and Wanda arrive with the young mutant girl in tow. After a heartfelt reunion, Scarlet Witch tells everyone that they cannot just sit in their respective dimensions hoping to not die and holding things together by a thread. They need to work together, an idea she got from helping out Stephen Strange from one Sorcerer Supreme to another. Magneto doesn't really like the concept of helping humans for several very legitimate reasons, but even he must agree only if the terms are beneficial on both sides. He wants to continue Krakoa's true goal and his life's work, providing a safe and nourishing place for the existence of all of mutant kind. So he removes his classic helmet, which you can still see in the Master of Magnetism skin, and crafts a Cerebro from scratch in about 5 seconds. Once again, the lore moments in this game give me so much hope as a comic book fan. We talk about how incredibly powerful Adam Warlock is. We talk about how incredibly powerful Magneto is. These people have such fine-tuned control of their powers. It's that old comic book trope, right? Where it's like, there's no point in power scaling in comics because in some fuck off what if issue from 30 years ago. You know, they said Scarlet Witch can casually move nebulas or whatever. Like, the powers just get so wild that it's hard to really picture how that functions in a video game. In fact, I've been working on a little bit of a theory, if you will, on how exactly Marvel Rivals works diegetically, of course. Because if you really think about it, with the way that most of these characters work, the Punisher should not be able to kill Storm under any circumstances, right? And obviously, the reason they can is because you can't do power scaling like that. Otherwise, the video game doesn't work. But diegetically, I think that Storm's story actually gives us a very helpful clue into why in universe these fights and encounters are so close. And say it with me, kids. What's the reason? Chronovium! Yay! We haven't talked about it in quite some time, but I do think that Chronovium has a lot to do with how these battles are working and taking place. But we will talk about that more in a separate video. This video is still about Magneto. So, after he creates Cerebro from scratch in 5 seconds, like I said, Wanda proceeds to enhance Cerebro with her magics, opening Cerebro to interdimensional use. And during his first usage, he sees a couple of interesting things. He sees what he describes as a golden light trying to burn out the darkness, as well as a king of the seas preparing to strike at the surface, a nod to Namor and Luna Snow's current going on story, and thousands of more before he finally sees a telepathic ninja trapped in a strange world of unholy amusements. Now, I am a little split on what exactly this means, because to my knowledge, while it was highly suggested at the time, I think this is the first confirmation of Adam Warlock being a mutant. Because Adam Warlock is not a mutant in the way that you think of like Scott Summers or Bobby Drake or, you know, even Colossus. Adam Warlock is a mutant among his race. He is a mutant among his race. Despite not having an explicit X gene, he's considered a mutant by his people. So the upgrade of Scarlet Witch's magic on Cerebro has expanded Cerebro to account for not only mutants that have X genes, but even a step further to that. If you are a mutant of your race, Magneto's new Cerebro can reach out to you telepathically. So it's sort of like exponentially increased the power of Cerebro, because the way Cerebro originally worked is that Xavier and Jean Grey and whatever other telepaths could use it almost as like a conduit to project their own powers out through the connection of an X gene. Magneto doesn't have telekinesis or telepathy. He does have telekinesis technically. Magneto does not have telepathy. He does not have that power. He does not have that ability. That is part of Scarlet Witch's magic. And since it is not amplifying his own X gene powered telepathy, it seems like it has expanded beyond those constraints and can kind of reach out to anyone who is considered a mutant of any kind. And I think, who's ready for the crazy theory? I think this is how we get the Inhumans. I think this is how we get the Inhumans, because Inhumans have always been so close, but technically different than the mutants in the comics, much to Marvel's disapproval. Marvel has tried several times to write out and get rid of the Inhumans, and for some reason they just don't. They just keep making stories with the Inhumans in them, and I don't understand why. But like Miss Marvel was turned into a mutant from being an Inhuman. They're very close, almost to the point of being the same thing, but they aren't. There are things that affect mutants that don't affect Inhumans. Things like the Terrigen Mist and stuff like that. They are different. But with Wanda's upgrades to Cerebro, they might be close enough that it doesn't matter anymore. But once again, like I've said like 3 times this video, that is a theory for another day. Thank you all so much for listening to this character profile for Magneto, the Master of Magnetism. If you like the video, like the video. If I said something wrong, call me out on it in the comments, or if you want to just tell me I'm having a great time here, then go ahead and do that too. Make sure you subscribe. We're so close to 100 subscribers, which is fucking awesome. I went from having like 10 or 20 subscribers at the start of January, and January is ending today, and I've got almost 100. That's incredible to me. And I appreciate you all so much for sticking around. I know there are a lot of different places that have started doing the lore of Marvel Rivals, and I'm so thankful that you're still kicking it around here with me. I'll keep the videos coming. Like I said, I've got that Chronovium theory to sort of explain what's going on. Storm will probably be the next video, which I might drop a little early. Maybe I'll drop that one on Saturday. Who knows? But thank you all so much for joining me. And until the next time I see you, drink some water, wash your hands, tell someone you love that you love them, and be good people.